channeled song is The Winner Is from Little Miss Sunshine. You know, my voice is actually going right now. So, if I make voices disappearing noises, that's what that is. Had some really interesting things happen the last 48 hours. You know, we've been going through all this stuff. And I haven't really been talking about Gym Crush or the dating apps or, you know, the people I've been talking to. And today, it was like running the gambit. You know, he came in today, Gym Crush. And I wasn't quite finished checking in the person right before. So the other girl at the other computer was like waving him down, like, come on down, I can take you over here. And he made this conscious decision to stay. And just shoot the shit for a minute. Which hasn't really been happening, right? The last 2 weeks, we haven't really been talking to each other. We haven't really been making eye contact or looking. But today, that small gesture, it kind of felt like it meant a lot. Because, once again, he was making time for me. In that moment. He was choosing to interact with me. And later on, he came up and asked me for a hammer. I didn't have one. But I guess his friend's weightlifting belt broke. You know, they put on these belts and they're like, oh, and they do these crazy deadlifts. And he came up and asked me for a hammer to try and fix it. And I told him I'd look and I'd find him after. So I found him, said I couldn't find a hammer. And they were like, oh, no, it's fine. And it kind of seemed like they didn't really need a hammer, you know? He just thought he'd come up and ask. Maybe it was an excuse. Maybe it was just a reason to talk. Briefly. To interact. But I was on the dating apps, and somebody messaged me, and they were like, hey, this is where you work, right? And I was like, that's creepy. Yeah. And so I spent all night talking to this guy and thinking maybe it's him, maybe it's not. And I thought it was maybe somebody else, and it wasn't. And, you know, I finally ended up figuring it out. And I had a good conversation with this guy for a couple hours. He's not for me. But I do like him as a person. And I got some really intense interest from this surgeon from Dallas who is up here all the time for work, I guess. He was very cute. And there was another guy who was very attractive also, in a more night of once kind of way, that had me very tempted to meet up with him tonight. And I've got all of these it's the Seven of Cups energy, right? All these options. But you know who I've been thinking about? In those moments when your mind just drifts It's not any of those other people. I didn't really feel like I clicked with any of them. Not really. You know, somebody can be fit and attractive and your type and all of these things and successful and, you know, all of these things. Kind, compassionate, funny. But there's this inexplicable energy, right? That no matter how good all of those other options look on paper, it doesn't matter because you are tied energetically to this other person. That's where your thoughts go. And right now, it's that King of Pentacles, that Jim Crush. Even though everything he said out loud makes it sound like that's not what he wants, you know? Not me specifically, but commitment in general, relationships, partnership. He doesn't seem like he wants that. And maybe that's a little fear. Maybe it's a little bravado. But the look in his eyes today, in that moment when we were finally felt normal again, you know? Because we weren't avoiding each other's gaze. We weren't just doing the bare minimum of hi and bye. It was the first moment in like 2 weeks where there was connection, however brief. And it felt like it did at the beginning when he was first coming up to the front and using a different bicycle just in order to be able to say hey. And it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that that's where I should be drawn, but I am. And it's got me thinking about the time I spent when I was all in for the King of Wands at the time, which ended up being this King of Cups, my twin flame. It was that same kind of energetic anchor, that same kind of thread. And then when I thought it was the King of Swords, the same thing. He had all my focus, all my attention. And I kept getting drawn back to him. And now it feels like that, where Spirit just puts all these other things in front of you. And I saw a reading from Wick earlier. It might have been a collective, where he was the Four of Cups. He didn't want any of these other options. He wanted this one. The one that's meant for us. You know, maybe that is. I know better than to think that I know. Lovers. Fool. Hierophant. But right now, maybe this whole getting back on the apps thing was really just supposed to show me I don't really want anybody else. Because even without talking, we still have that connection. Without saying much at all, we still have it. We still feel it. And we're both on the same page energetically the entire time.